Here at Extraterrestrial Chess, we play Love Move. We've heard the cries of humanity. We have come to bring the higher law to this struggling planet.
The prime polarity of the polarity of self and another. Yeah, we're not that far away as I previously thought we were in the beginning.
If you read the Bible and it says don't worship false idols.
I just left Tel Aviv yesterday though.
Wow.
Yo, half of my family lives in Ashdod.
Really?
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Beautiful country right now, huh? In the summertime.
There's some Buddhist guys that think that that's Mashiach, so I picked it up to see what that's. I didn't even pay for it. They were giving it away for free.
So this is like Messianic Judaism in a way?
No, I don't know.
Or it's just Christian?
It's probably Kabbalistic Judaism.
That's how I was curious.
Kabbalistic?
Yeah.
Read the back. I think this was Buddha.
Yeah. I'm as you can see Messianic. This seems kind of the same thing. If it's
no, I mean I'm a Kabbalist, so I'm in.
What's Kabbalist?
It's Jewish mysticism.
So Yeshua, lo.
Yeshua Mashiach ben Yosef.
You said Yosef?
Mashiach ben Yosef.
Okay.
You said Yosef? That's my middle name.
Interesting.
That's my middle name too.
Really?
Tell me your first name's Anthony.
Jonas.
Jonas?
Yosef with a Y?
What? No. I'm
Mine with the Y.
Oh, for real?
5 minutes?
I'm Ethiopian, that's what. You're Joseph.
All I know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be this stupid, but all I know about Ethiopia is I like the injera. That's all I know.
Yeah, we had.
I thought you were going to say, oh, I heard they were hungry when they were the family. That's fine, the food is good.
Oh, it's.
Why would that be disrespectful?
I mean, I didn't think it was. That's why I said it. But you never know. It's New York. People get offended over everything.
Ethiopian food is amazing. I try to tell people that. Especially if you want to be vegan or vegetarian.
I'm vegan. Achi.
Oh my gosh.
You want to take it back? Take it back.
I can actually do that?
That'll actually fuck up the channel though, right? Because. Oh no, you know what? Don't enter this move. Just don't enter. We'll give them the move back. Just don't enter it. Don't enter that one. Go ahead.
Oh, y'all are entering the moves, huh?
Yeah, no, because we got to put it up at the channel. This is it here.
Was right here. Yeah, we're
All right.
Editing videos are hard.
I've been
Check.
doing it for
Yeah,
a
check.
while. Hard for me, not hard for him.
But you know, since I met him,
So you have a YouTube channel,
editing
huh?
Chess videos,
Ken, you're gonna be all over it.
Put in all the
We're getting
moves
beat up?
and, like, a digital board, and
Explain that.
you'll see in the videos. You know,
What channel called?
Extraterrestrial
Yeah.
chess.
I don't know if I'll be able to.
Do you do YouTube for chess, or this is just one of the things?
No, I mean, I got a couple things going, but chess is the hook because chess is hot.
It's very hot. Well, there's some force made eventually. It seems.
Let's go. There we go.
All right. I don't know what we're gonna call this one. All right, you ready? You ready? Watch this. This is for you.
It's one away from force.
I like
Shalom.
the
Shalom.
I can-
Oh, he raps too.
It's hip hop chess.
Yo, you could start
Hip hop chess, no way.
Hip hop chess. Yeah.
me hear
ITV
it.
start chess wars with hip hop.
I need some hip hop chess.
Hold on.
Share, subscribe.
Sit back, relax.
Get
Shit
other
is
people.
not a sin. I'm about to explain to you how to win with a pin. See my man's right here. I have no fear. This is where the problem is. Right here. See?
Yeah, that becomes losing very fast.
Oh,
huh?
and this was here. Like I think this was here. Yeah, this was here. Just like this. And now,
Welcome. You have your
what happens
the
here
head,
is that
right?
you just bust the king open.
Yeah, I know. It's just once you got two pieces, it happens so
It
fast.
got incredibly, it gets incredibly, and then you move this, and then
Once you get the queen, and the game's over.
it's over. Yeah,
I mean, it's really over here.
You have
anyways.
to challenge this. You have to challenge that. Make sense?
Yeah. Try to break it up a little bit.
The thing is, you don't want to be castled when I have a pin there, because you want to be able to play G4. You want to play H3. I back it up and play G4.
Didn't you already have the bishop? I castled into the bishop, didn't I?
You castled into the bishop, right? So what you want to do is like, once the bishop's pinned, if I pin that before you castle, you're gonna play H3 and then G4, right? I might be able to sack and do things like that, but you don't. This position is horrible, because once I can plop the knight on Z4, you have problems. So you want like the bishop here and the knight here, if that's gonna happen, so that you could either snap this or you could hold this and not happen. Normally, the knights connected like this isn't good, because they kill each other's mobility. Like you feel safe because they're protecting each other.
My knight can't go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But they retard each other's mobility.
Yeah.
But in a position like this, so that this shit doesn't happen, you deal with stupid little shit like that.
Yeah, just attack all those pieces, get them out of there. Like with the bishop, I should have at least backed him up.
Yeah.
No. Hey, maybe that was enough. What's your rating?
My peak rating was 2156.
Oh my goodness.
I had 5 tournaments over 2400. My rating tanked during the lockdowns. My rating tanked during the lockdowns because I was like running tournaments out here and stuff like that.
Oh wow.
So it absolutely tanked.
Yeah.
But I'm probably like 22, 23.
For sure. I'm 1560 on chess.com, which means I'm actually like 1100.
Nah, it's not that big.
Oh, it's
not that big.
I don't know. I've seen some blunders at
Yeah, chess.com.
1600.
People try to say it's 200 point difference. I don't know if that's true because I've seen people that are masters rated 1900 on chess.com. Then I've seen people that are 1900, rated 2200 on chess.com.
Chess. Oh, so are these all hustlers around here? If I go to any table, it's
Hustle is a strong term. You're spending money at every table, though.
Yeah. Okay.
What you want to do, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're getting something good for your money.
I don't want a castle yet. This is a little more sound.
Let me get out of your way, baby.
It's obviously not a touch move, right?
Of course not. Here at Extraterrestrial Chess, we play love move.
Extraterrestrial chess.
Extraterrestrial Chess.
That's quite the name.
So, my general belief is that the universe originated in consciousness, right? The Messiah is when enough of people with that consciousness actually wake up to the fact. So the word Jew, right?
Yeah.
Eudim, it actually just means united ones. Those that are united with the Godhead. Right?
Yes.
So when enough of us that are united actually start following the principle, like what does Shabbat mean? Shabbat means the entering of the second soul. Right? What's the second soul? It's when the divinity has actually entered into your being. So when those of us that realize the unification of all beings also practice the moral law, that is the resurrection of Mashiach.
I see. So
Now-
it is very mysticist.
Yeah.
Jew.
Now you might ask, what does that have to do with extraterrestrials? I'm so glad you came up with that question. I'll tell you,
Yes,
because I think
yes.
that there's extraterrestrial cultures that have realized this time and time again, and I actually think that I'm part of them. Because we've heard the cries of humanity from the distance, but we're not allowed to interfere with free will. Does that make sense? So if you take on a human incarnation, then you're not interfering with free will. So here at Extraterrestrial Chess, we have come to bring the higher law to this struggling planet. And all we ask is $10 a game.
What does this higher law include, good sir?
The primal law is the law of one and the will of God. Right? But not will as like a decision. The will of the prime moving force. Does that make sense?
Does.
All right.
To a degree.
So then, as you lower in the dimensions, as you lower down the dimensions, all right. What if I could just come say hello? As you lower down the dimensions, there become more laws. So the law in the third dimension is, we're basically here to choose if we want to lead a noble life or a shitty life. Right? That's why polarity is so profound on this planet.
It almost works. I can almost sack my queen.
Almost?
Polarity as in, meaning if I took the rook and you took my queen, I could take the rook with check, and then that knight can block though. That would have been so cool.
I actually think it's a decent idea.
I get 2 rooks out of it. Actually,
You got 2 rooks in a piece if you did that. So I just wouldn't take it. Like if you take this, I just play rook 6.
So what are you threatening here?
Polarity, because it's the polarity of self and other, right? What do I do here? What do I do here? What do I do here? Let's take this first. Check.
Nearly a blunder.
Nearly. Does that make sense? The prime polarity, the polarity of self and other?
The prime polarity of the polarity of self and other.
The prime, yeah. That's what we're here to reconcile.
That is certainly a heavy thought to fully comprehend while I'm playing a game of chess, but
That's why you're
if you'd
playing a
like
game
to
of chess.
keep elaborating.
Do you know that chess comes from extraterrestrials? Can I explain something to you? I'll explain something to you, if it's okay with you.
Why did I just blunder my whole night?
Because you love me. All right. Let's go here. So,
So aggressive.
why not?
Yeah, just take my pawn. Yeah.
He was asking for it.
So
Well, you said
why is chess
Oh,
extraterrestrial?
no, thank you for reminding me. My lovely Asian Vanna White has come to remind me that I slept 3.5 hours last night and I'm a little scattered. So, the general idea on Earth, there's 64 codons that code for protein in DNA. There's also
64 squares on a chessboard.
There's 64 squares on a chessboard. There's also 64 hexagrams in the I Ching. There's also 32 points in the Kabbalistic tree of life. But opposites reconcile, bringing you to 64.
oh, that's good. That's fine.
Right.
I thought the royal fork, you know?
It's all right. You're still loved. I hope you didn't have intentions of winning the game. So
If I didn't blunder in my night that one time, you know?
and if I got a different woman pregnant, I wouldn't have had to go through custody court. What are you gonna do? All right. Well, hard time. Shalosh Arba Hamesh Sheish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, I'll just take it.
Oh, you're
I come here.
the disrespectful way, huh?
It's no, because now I'm free. I'm free to talk. So now the idea is that chess. There's 6 pieces on a chessboard. They contain the minimum amount of straight lines. The minimum amount of lines necessary to hold all straight lines. Nature itself doesn't create straight lines. So what you're looking at is the geometric principle of the universe, right? Because 64 is what? It's just 4 cubed, right? So it's the apex shape of the third dimension. Is it 4 cubed? Yes, 4 cubed. So it's the apex shape of the third dimension. So what you're looking at is the underlying primal geometry of creation with the human mind laid over it. Does that make sense?
So how does one come to this, all of these realizations?
Meditate a lot and love everybody you meet.
Meditate a lot. So these words come to you, or you would say you
Well, no,
form these? Because you said we can't affect free will, but isn't free will the act of
Well, no,
affecting things?
Extraterrestrials, I mean, it's a different thing. Like,
Oh,
we have,
different kind. Continue that.
we can't affect people's free will, right? We can't make you choose the light, right? But if I incarnate in a human body, and then I say I choose the laws of love, right? Like you saw the books I had, the laws of hell and the laws of heaven, basically.
This one?
Yeah, like the law of Mashiach,
Yes, yes,
and then
yes.
the law of hell, right? It's like if I incarnate and I choose the laws of heaven, then the earth people are actually choosing the laws of heaven, and then we like know the practices. Right?
So alien and God to you are kind of the same thing.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Extraterrestrials.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at
No,
all.
but if you said you create the laws of love, give them to humans, and then they create those laws, isn't that what God did in the Bible technically? With
No,
the Ten
but
Commandments
what
and
happened? What happens is like the idea of the Messiah, right? The Messiah is one that masters the laws that have been given by God, right? And then shares them, and they're different than normal human perceptions, right? So Kabbalistically, we say that one vegetable has more awareness than every rock in creation. One animal has more awareness than every vegetable in creation. One human has more awareness than every animal in creation. And one speaker, which is like Moses, Jesus, that type of thing, has more consciousness than every human in creation. So
And then there's one more above that, still in your mindset, correct?
no, not necessarily. I mean,
After a Moses type, there's
in the human form, there's the integration, there's the unity, right? So Kabbalistically, they call it equivalence of form. So when you talk about the speaker, like the male reaches the level of the speaker, the female reaches the level of the oracle, right? So once those are reached, that's the expression of equivalence of form, which is when Kabbalistically the Kli have opened up sufficiently.
the Kli.
Yeah.
Elaborate.
There's energetic centers in the body,
And that's Kli?
in your aura.
Isn't that Chi as well?
It's chi, but Kli means shell.
Oh.
Right? So you have the case.
Hebrew?
Yeah. So Kli means shell. So there's the shells. Right? It's klipot. It means multiple shells. So the klipot are the shells. When you actually empty your shells to fill them totally with light, your will becomes unified with the Creator. It's the highest level of human spirit achieved.
That is the profited person like Moses.
And that's the actual idea of the unified ones, the ones that reach equivalence of form with the Creator as their will becomes harmonized, right? So the idea of like Jesus, Mashiach ben Yosef, is the idea that at that point in history, he was the first one in Western civilization to actually reach that level and make it possible for this to come, right? Which if you actually like read the Bible and know what you're doing, it's clear that he was a Kabbalist when you read a lot of the things that were said. Like, for example, he says for a camel to cross through the eye of a needle, that the heart has to unify with the third eye.
That's broad to say that he's a Kabbalist, though, based off those.
Well,
sayings.
no, but if you read the Kabbalah, literally
Sure,
the
Kabbalah came after the Bible, correct?
the Jewish interpretations came after the Bible.
Okay, so if it came after and y'all have similar ideas to what Jesus said, that doesn't mean Jesus is a Kabbalah. That means Kabbalists are based off Jesus' teachings, correct?
Maybe, but when he says a camel crossing through the eye of a needle, it's actually a very specific Kabbalistic reference.
But the Kabbalah came after, so it's a reference to the Bible.
Again, the Hebrew interpretations, but the actual structures, like the revelations came after. I think that, because when you look at multiple civilizations, they all have this science of how spirit turns into matter, right? So the Jews call it Kabbalah, the Chinese call it I Ching, the yogas have like the Yoga Sutras and things
Yeah,
like
the
that.
Greeks, the Nordics, all
It's
that.
all the science of how.
I agree with that very much.
Right, it's just the science of how spirit turns to matter. So this is where it gets interesting because.
Spirit turns to matter, wow.
It's interesting because this is where you get away from notions of religious and into notions of spiritual practice, right? Where it's not that there's practices that you do to perfect your relationship with creation, but there's no one ownership over it, right? So every practice has to be respected for what it is. But again, like what I mean when I say Iyudim is the ones that have achieved equivalence of form. And then there actually, as we talk about this all the time, there's different sets of laws for the united ones. And you see that reflected in Judaism. There's different laws for Jews than there are for Gentiles. I think there's different laws for the united ones than there are for people that aren't united.
I see.
Yeah.
So you don't deny nor disrespect any other religions, rather just umbrella them.
Yeah, I mean,
as-
my problem, I love all religions, and I think that you find really beautiful people in all religions. The problem is when they get possessive and absolutistic, right? And the thing that's very attractive about Judaism to me is that the religion is based on debating everything.
So,
Right? So there's more room for correction in Judaism than a lot of other religions.
certainly.
Built into the structure. I love that about Judaism. I also love the Hebrew alphabet's very close to actual reality, right? That when you study the Sefer Yetzirah, they talk about the multiple levels that reality moves through. The alphabet is said to be the three-dimensional levels. The Hebrew alphabet is
what
actually.
way?
What's that?
In what way does it represent?
It's the building block. So if you look at, say, like the 64 codons that code for protein in the human genome, and then we talk about the points in the Kabbalah, the points of the I Ching and chessboard, there's 22 amino acids that make proteins, and there's 22 Hebrew letters, right? So if you actually start to look at the structure of the Hebrew alphabet, the Kabbalah claims that it's the building blocks of all creation. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in those things. Where I start to get off is on, like, say, the fanatical interpretations of law. Like, I'm massively against circumcision, and there's yeah. I mean, I think it's ritualistic child abuse.
It is, in a way.
So but now it's. So yeah, I mean, I'm a very big fan of loving people inside of religions, but then when you get hateful people inside religions, they're lunatics.
That's the cause of all wars.
Right, they're absolute lunatics. And even if you think about the word Bible, right? Bi is in the beginning of the word, so it means it's a split text. It can be used for good or evil, right? So if you commit to these principles in the wrong way, you're literally a channel of hell, right? And if you commit to the principles in the correct way, you literally can bring the Messiah. Right?
So then how do you feel, as you said, you don't like when the religion turns into anything that's violent or against anyone else, like based on your belief, possessive and you said possessive and another word to describe the bad parts of religion, where like it has to be your God and you fight somebody else because it has to be your God.
Right. The major conflation that philosophically makes those things fall apart is you can't confuse the absolute with the relative, right? So the idea that the Ten Commandments are absolute is insane to me, because to have the number 10, that means there's relativity contained within. Like 1 is 1 because it's not 2, 2 is 2 because it's not 3. All those numbers are based on what they're not. Those commandments are based on what they're telling you not to do. They're those commandments. I think they're largely negative commandments. Thou shalt not. Thou shalt not. Thou shalt not. Thou shalt not. So thou shalt not is based on the isness on the other side, which makes them relative commandments. The law is absolute. The law is that which has no opposite. Right?
Yeah.
So you can't have relative commandments. Now what starts to happen is that the religions go downhill when they don't understand the distinction between rules and laws. Right? You could have very good guideposts, but the only real law is I am one with the Father. The only real law is I am you. Right? The only real law is like everything down here is going to change. Right? Those are the real laws. Everything else can be held as practices. It's certainly a good idea not to murder people. It's certainly a good idea not to, cheat on your wife. It's certainly a good idea not to steal. It's certainly a good idea not to fuck your neighbor's girlfriend, right? Like those are certainly good ideas. Are they absolute laws? They can't be because they're based in what they're not, right? So where people get fanatical is they confuse the relative with absolute. In modernity, where the problem is they confuse objective with absolute, right? So they say like the fact that this is a table is an absolute truth. No, it's an objective truth. The subject objectifies the table, right?
Certainly.
So it's an objective truth, but it's not an absolute truth. If you actually go deeper into this, the table doesn't know itself as table. This actually only table because subject projects the notion of table onto this structure, right? So the objective truth is dependent upon the subject to be the objective truth that it is. We in a materialistic civilization confuse objective and absolute realities. And that's why we're in this situation that we're in today.
So, with objective and absolute realities, I wouldn't say they're as different as you point them. You said this table is only a table because somebody objectifies it as a table, but that almost just seems like existentialist philosophy to me, in that there's no real answers when you're asking so many of these questions. If I had to ask you what's the point of life with being a Kabbalist,
I mean, I want to talk the table situation is simple, right? The structure could be here, even if you don't want to get into like any type of weirdness, because you could say if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, it doesn't make a sound.
Yeah.
It doesn't, because a sound is when a sound wave bounces off an eardrum and is interpreted. So if a tree falls in the forest, it makes a sound wave, but it doesn't make a sound, right? So you can make an argument that without the five senses, this table doesn't exist as proper, right? Very, very easily. But even if you don't go into that, table includes the functionality of table within the expression of the word, right? So the table becomes what we perceive as an objective table through subjective interpretation, right? The meaning of life Kabbalistically is very, very simple. It's very, very simple. It's to empty your own personal being, to become the receiver of divine light, so that you can match the will of creation as your own will, and that's what equivalence of form is, right? Now the meaning of life is the radical, ecstatic expression of the infinite in the finite. Right? So like meaning and purpose they're facets on the same diamond, but they're not exactly identical.
No.
Right? Where again, purpose is to become unified. Right? Meaning is the joy and the potencies of the infinite reflecting of the finite. Right?
I see so much struggle with doing as you say, becoming unified, and that, as you said, spill out your being, become everything on level with creation, as you said, right? Which that means just doing all that you can with what you've been given, right?
Right.
Simplified. If you ask so many questions like this, how long does it take you? Because with what you're saying, if I step into Kabbalism, I have to ask and face so many questions about everything in reality that I feel like I would come out the other side more confused than I would unified with creation. Like, did you not go crazy for a little bit asking all these questions?
No. When I started this 22 years ago, and in the beginning, I mean, I had serious mystical experiences. In the beginning, it was intense, right? Because it's real. That's the thing, it's real. So when you do this work, the world opens. Crazy shit happens, right? And nothing's stopping it. And then the psychological integration of that takes a minute, right?
It does.
The problem is, the fuck else are you doing?
I guess that's a good point.
Right? Like there's nothing else going on.
Not much.
And if you're not doing it, you're actually causing suffering.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Like,
so you kind of have to do it.
At some point. Have any of these mystical experiences been involved with psychedelics in any way?
Years ago, no, when I had the awakening, no, it was sober. It was sober. I was training in the Hegelian dialectic with a Jesuit priest.
Hegelian?
Yeah. Hegel's major thing is the gradational spectrum of awareness as it moves into the absolute.
The absolute?
The absolute.
Absolute.
Yeah, absolute is like the Hebrew word, but it's like when it moves into the absolute realization of the concept. But there's a gradation moving from the senses to perception to the master-slave dialectic to self-awareness, things like that. And it becomes more and more refined, but what you find is tensions reconciling themselves the whole way up. So the reason you're talking about the confusion is because there's the one white light of all creation, and the one white light of all creation, it has to polarize itself to create the physical experience. So it's literally this one thing that just starts spinning in opposite directions, and then those tensions have to become reconciled, and we see that all over the world. Democrats, Republicans, up, down, left, right, you know, all this stuff, male, female, all these things are trying to constantly come into harmony with each other. Heaven is when these things come into harmony with each other. The united one is the one that understands the harmony, right? And then, like the Eudim, like you know, the chosen are the ones that understand the harmony, working together to deal with those who don't. Right.
Yeah. So.
I'm sorry, but the confusion that you're talking about comes because the opposites are constantly tugging at you. Right?
All the time.
So then the alleviation of the confusion comes when you realize the opposites are the same thing. Black and white reflects all color. Black absorbs it. So think about this. When you look and you see white light, that white light actually has no color in it because it's reflected it all out. The black light actually has all the color inside of it. But then we see it in its opposite. So they're the same thing in different motions. Right? So the thing that confuses us is time. Right?
There's a lot more confusion than just time itself, as you said. Black
without time, you can't have confusion, because black and white are the same thing, just in different moments of themselves. Right? So without time, there's no confusion. That doesn't mean you get rid of time. That just means that if you're confused, it's because you've lost touch with the eternal. Like my Zen master used to say, "How long does it take to get in contact with the present moment?"
That's a good question.
They'd say, "How hard is it to meditate?" He would say, "How hard is it to sit down and shut up?" I say, "Yeah, but what do you do?" He'd say, "Can you breathe?"
Yeah, certainly. So you say only the united one really has this all in touch and can see everything as it is.
Right, but then there's even levels within the united one, because the finite being is always beneath the eternal. The way I heard it expressed greatly is God is greater than you, but you're not less than God. So the Buddhists say not one, not two. So the idea is that the fusion of the finite and the eternal is the function of eternity, because what does God lack? God lacks lack. God has everything. God is everything, so he must create that's what lacks. And that's what this whole game is. As that which lacks becomes unified, then we complete creation. Right? Because now the finite is actually present within the infinite. And the story of history is that conflict working itself out.
I say that often, that you can only be good if there's evil around. Like, good is only good because you have bad. If everything was good, then it's nothing, right? It's all the same thing. But you're saying it's all the same thing. Good and bad,
the substance is the same. I mean, think about it. What happened in the Garden of Eden? Right? The knowledge of good and evil is what caused the fall of man.
Certainly.
You want to know a little secret? If you do the gematria on Mashiach, Messiah, and Nahash, serpent, they both come out to 358.
The what? The gematria?
The gematria. So it's said that the first three dimensions are governed by the Hebrew alphabet. The fourth dimension is governed by numbers, and the fifth is governed by words. Right?
Okay.
So gematria is the Kabbalistic science of understanding the fourth dimension. So there's a numerical correlate to every single word. Right? So say, for example, in English, we'll just do English gematria. Say if I said cat, it's the first word that came to mind. So that's 3 plus 1 plus what's T? 20? So it would be 24. Right? Now Hebrew, there's actually a system where once you get, it goes like, you don't get to 11. It goes 1 through 10, then 20, then 30, then 40, then 50, then 60, then 70, then 80, then 90, then 100, 200, 300, 400.
Yeah.
Right? So Mashiach and Nahash are both 358. 358 is a Fibonacci sequence because 3 plus 5 equals 8. Right? So the substance is actually the same. It's what are you doing with the substance? How do you?
I'll see you later.
Hug me, hold me. Tell me it's going to be okay.
We'll be all
Why
right.
are you looking at me like this?
I said work.
People need to be hugged.
I'll see you at home, okay?
Okay.
I came out the closet as a homo-terrestrial. I understand. Let them. They can think what they think. We love all beings. What I'm saying.
So what's the point of this game if you say it's a game and everything's all the same, black and white, good and evil, all of it, Messiah and
Nahash, serpent.
Nahash, they're all the same. You're saying God just created this game.
Remember time.
Time created this game.
No,
What
God.
is
Well,
time?
God. No,
Who
God.
created
God
time?
created time. Again, the function is at the most high level. Nothing lacks. So in order to actually have everything, you have to have what you don't have. So you have to have lack. So we're created to be finite, and then reconcile that tension with eternity. And that's what the story of history is the story of that struggle. So a lot of theologians actually call it God's weakness. God's weakness is that God's all powerful. So it lacks weakness. So then the genius is to create weakness, but then an actual real structure that goes through these things and makes these decisions. Do I choose to walk towards heaven? Do I choose to walk towards hell? I texted my friend about this the other day. I said, many beings stay stuck in purgatory forever, but eventually you choose one side. And if you choose heaven, you'll go there. You'll have to go through hell first, because so much of it is the mastery of hell. They say that when Jesus came off the cross, he went to hell for 3 days and emptied hell. Literally, I've heard it said that the fires of the Pentecost and the fires of hell are the same fires, like the fires of the Holy Spirit and the fires of hell are the same fire. It's your willingness to transform.
So, if, say this all works out and everyone wants to transform, what is the way of closer uniting yourself to creation? What are the methods in physical and material? You know,
I mean,
not mere material, but
you start with
like
you
every day.
start. I've updated the law of love, right? Love thy neighbor as love your God with your whole heart, whole mind, whole soul. Love thy neighbor as thyself, and don't bow to tyrants. Right? Don't bow to tyrants. Right?
Yeah, certainly.
So now, the idea, but love your neighbor as yourself is very important, because that's not like a nice thing to say. That's to realize I am you. So you see, love God with your whole mind, whole heart, whole soul is to love that which you cannot understand, that is totally beyond you. But then to love your neighbor as yourself is actually the practice of the law of unity. And then to not bow to tyrants is what you're dealing with when you come to the world. When you start going, I think that proper eating and meditation are essential.
Certainly.
And then living as if you actually believe in the things that we just said. Right?
Certainly. I mean, so it is. In a way, what are you don't have codes, you don't have law, like
I just told you.
but like you don't believe in like objective law, like the Ten Commandments.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, the thing is, there's a one pulsing reality that you follow, and then there's a lot of common sense, right? I mean, because when you start to realize like if you want to say everything's one thing, hugging somebody and killing somebody become the same thing.
Correct.
So then
Which is my issue.
you have to start to ask yourself, what's the distinction? The distinction is one leads you towards heaven, the other leads you towards hell. It's all the same substance, but it's directional, right? So the idea is that there's the unified Godhead at the top, right? And the noble path that we seek is walking closer in harmony with that Godhead. The hellish path is working further away from it. So think about this. Hell is the realm where everything is separated, and heaven is the realm where everything is unified, right? So a hug literally brings you closer into unity. Stabbing someone literally separates you from them. This is the interesting thing about the completion, though, the integration of the shadow and things like that, because what you're actually doing is recognizing your unity even though you're different.
Because we're all the same in a way.
We're all made of the same stuff.
Yeah.
I am. I always joke and say, how do you know God's from Brooklyn? Because Moses says, who are you? He says, I am who I am. Right. So there's this, but your sense of I amness, the self that doesn't change, right? The part of you that was you the moment you were born, the part of you that's with you every single day, right? The part of you that doesn't change. It's not that it's identical to my part of me that seems, there's only one. So we are one self looking through multiple billions of eyes, right? And then that separation gives us domain of choice in how we choose to participate. But the real choice is, do I align on a mission closer to heaven, or am I aligned with a mission closer to hell? The truth of the matter is, just trying with everything you have is enough. You will find these things like, I have to meditate every day or I don't feel right. I have to eat right or I don't feel right. I'm not allowed to mistreat people or I don't feel right. You're allowed to make mistakes.
Certainly.
You're allowed to make mistakes. But we talk about the state of continual forgiveness, right? The idea that there really is no eternal sin, there's mistakes. Now the problem becomes when you double down on your mistakes. Maybe say you fuck up and tell a lie. you better come back and tell the truth pretty quick. But if you double down on that lie, pretty soon you don't even know what the truth is anymore. Right? So part of the real law is, like, one of the rules to get to heaven is, like, don't double down on your mistakes. Just recognize you made a mistake, and recognize the fact that you're a human being, a finite creature, means you're going to make mistakes along the way. Continuously drop the guilt and keep moving back towards heaven. And what is that? The vision of unity. So, like, where this provides practical ecstasy is that you see things in other people that you don't like, but you realize you are them. So you start to see those things in yourself, and then you just choose not to do them. Like, we all deal with assholes on a daily basis. If they drive you crazy, it's because there's unresolved parts of your own being that are suppressing that from your psyche. Right? If you choose to see that as, I have the capacity to be that big of a dickhead. Like, this is my favorite one. This one helped me out a lot. I said, if I'm one with everything, I'm one with Jesus and one with Hitler. Right? The thing is, which parts of those selves do I choose to be like, and which parts of those selves do I choose to change? And what is it to change those parts of the self? It's to realize that, you know, in a desire that you can't exterminate a soul, right? So like, the ideas that were being propagated were based, when they're based on murderous ideas, right? Absolute wicked ideas, they're trying to exterminate souls. You know what I mean? You can't exterminate a soul. So what we do is we place that type of aggression in the subordinate function, and we place love in the higher ideal, and that's how we balance these impulses within ourselves. Right? Now the thing is, on Earth, one will reign at the end of time, and it will be the messianic consciousness or the demonic consciousness. It's our job as the united ones to make sure that it goes the right way.
Yeah. What's different from that truly than someone living an actual Christian mindset? Because as you say, you do these things if you believe them, and most of the things you said involve doing in what is made to be in the Christian Bible, good and evil. And as you said, like, don't kill people, stabbing people takes away. You said don't let guilt take you away from getting closer to creation. A lot of those things are, like, very, very similar to.
No, they are. I mean, they are. The major distinction is there's no separation, like, between us and God in the real world, right? Christianity places God up here, Jesus up here, and the Holy Spirit is separate things that you have to worship. And then it starts to lower through these very corrupted church ideologies. And I said this to somebody the other day. I said this to somebody the other day. You're telling me the absolute truth is a book that's 2,000 years old, that's been translated thousands of times and corrupted by greedy people? That's your absolute truth?
Yes, exactly. Thousands of times.
So the thing is that there's truth in everything, but the major distinction is going to be the separation between us and God, and the relationship to the manifestation of law. The understanding the only absolute law is the will of God. All these other things that go on, they're kind of philosophical grappling points that you could contend with, but the actual scripture is written in the fabric of your soul. It's not written in a book, right? You could, once you purify yourself, you could actually feel what's right and what's wrong. And then it becomes, but there are very great kernels of wisdom that can really save you, like the idea of vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. It's not my job to enforce punishment upon people. It's my job to deal with the situations. It's my job to navigate them. But it's not my job to, say, for example, be the enforcer of karma, right? So there's wisdom to be found. But again, the Bible literally means Bible. It's right there. It's a twofold thing. There's heaven and hell contained in there.
Yeah.
If you choose to interpret it through the lens of unity, it can lead you to heaven, but so can anything else. I swear to God, if I choose to read that essential bottle through the lens of unity, I mean, look, like, there's a cross right on it, right? Like, water, life, right? Essential, right? Your essence, like the deeper overachieving, right? Like, you start to get into it. If you purified, right? If you choose to see anything through the lens of unity, it can bring you back to heaven. I think the Bible should be held in that text, but maybe with an understanding there was some attentive nuance to it, but then also the respect that it's the root document of Western civilization. So in a lot of ways, it could be revered as a cultural text. But I mean, we started it because we were seeing this book. This is a Buddhist text, right? Like, there's the truth is truth. If you choose, it's amazing, right? Because, like, communism led us straight to hell, right? Obviously. If you choose to read that through a lens of unity, you actually get the Hegelian dialectic, which is a formula that says spirit holds domain over everything, right? where Marx made his mistake is he tried to invert Hegel and remove the spirit from it. So he viewed Hegel through a lens of separation. Right? The separation between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, the separation between the state and man, he saw separate entities conflicting, where Hegel choose to unify them and bring about absolute consciousness. So anything you look at is through that. What I have a big problem with the Bible is the separation that it suggests as the absolute law. Anybody with any trained philosophical lens sees that interpretation falls apart. And this is the other thing. It's like, how do you absolutely interpret a book?
No.
Because this brings us back to the conversation of the table. When you look at the table is dependent upon my interpretation for it to be a table as proper, not just a collection of atoms. Table is a word that suggests function, right? Every objective thing is dependent upon interpretation. So you can't have an absolute interpretation of a text.
Can't. But isn't the absolute interpretation your interpretation? Because you believe it, whatever you
No,
believe,
absolute means that which has no opposition.
in like the big scheme, but not in your head. It's absolute in your head.
No, because the absolute in your head, I mean, when you get into the Kabbalistic tree of life, they talk about Keter. Keter is the bridge point between it's when the awakened, Keter means crown in Hebrew, and it's when the human mind becomes synthesized with the Ein Sof, that which has no end. That starts to lower into relative phenomena.
I see.
Right? So what's absolute for you is your will. Your will has no opposition, but then your will starts to come into contact with relative phenomena.
How does my will have no opposition? Often.
Because it's a decision, right? Watch this.
But often in my head I make a decision and that decision is regretted half the time
Right.
in my head.
But the act of deciding has no opposition. Then as it moves into the relativistic world, right? So Kabbalistically, the decision, the ability to choose, the deciding force, the will, is above the relative factors. So what happens is you absolutely make that decision, but then it lowers into the relative forms, and then you question that decision. It's not the decision. Like if I say this, I'm picking up that water right now. The act of picking up the water isn't the decision, right? It was the act of deciding that remained unopposed. Then as it crossed into the relative universe, now we're back into the world of functionality where it can be opposed to relative forces.
Certainly.
Right.
But it can be opposed in your head. Like
It can be opposed in your head, but this is when you open the crown. It's the motion of the decision. Like you have to do meditations and phenomenology to get this. Like you have to watch your mind in the act of making a decision. You will see that it's an unopposed force.
Sure.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're not that far away as I previously thought we were in the beginning, because I'm not the biggest Bible person, only as a guideline. I think everyone should read it and see maybe what you should do as a guideline, but you're right, the connection is in here. Like the relationship, I don't read the Bible maybe once a week, but I sit down and just close my eyes and don't speak a word, and I hear things. I'm learning things that aren't from a book, but they are things that I should do. Like I almost meditate bettering my life, and I'm not the one saying it, you know. It may be in my head, what people call a conscious, but often if I just sit by myself and then take everything else away and get with my spirit will guide me. And that's very similar to what you're talking about. I guess that is coming closer to creation, you know, if you're taking out the noise and focusing in on yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and I said it's funny, if you read the Bible and it says don't worship false idols, what's the Bible if you're worshiping it? I am the Lord thy God, worship no God but me.
My goodness, thank you for saying that. Like,
right.
It is the book by God, but it is not God.
Right.
People.
But no, what I talk about all the time is Scripture is ingrained in the fabric of reality. It's ingrained in every human heart. These books are shadows that are cast upon us. And if you actually read them, it proves itself, right? I am the Lord thy God, worship no God but me. Okay, cool. It actually doesn't say, and this is my text.
Yes.
It says, I am the Lord. So people start to idolize the Bible. And that takes them to hell.
It does. You think?
If they idolize it. If they use
Yeah.
it. See, you seem cool, right? So like you seem like you're using it in the right way. Even when you say you do these things, you meditate them, it feels like you're using the Bible to get in contact with the actual Scripture that's embedded in reality. Kabbalistically,
It's so translated and you can tell.
right, but Kabbalistically, we say that the real Kabbalist doesn't need the Torah anymore.
Doesn't need what?
Doesn't need the Torah. Because you could actually read it off the fabric of reality. Hug me, hug me, hug me, hug me, hug me, hug me, hug me.
So you are the Kabbalist is so in tune that all of the guidance and lessons needed as they go to reach higher creation comes from within.
Right, because reality can communicate with you, but that's through the purification of your being, right? So everybody that's a psych unit is basically having mystical experiences, but if their being is not purified, they're not interpreting them properly. So this is why there's so many levels, the laws for the unified and the laws for the ununified, right? Because there are certain things you have to do before you're unified to get unified. Right? In Buddhism, we say before enlightenment, the precepts can't help you. And after enlightenment, you don't need the precepts. Right. But then it's interesting because we didn't throw out the precepts.
Yeah. Well, most people aren't enlightened. They still need
No, but remember, before they won't help you, and after you don't need them.
Yeah.
But you read them, it's that great Bruce Lee thing, like, is my finger the moon? Like, I'm pointing to the moon, is my finger the moon? Right?
What does that mean?
That you don't want to get lost in the symbol being the thing. Like, you wouldn't eat the label, you want to eat the food. Right? Like, when you look at the stop sign, what's more important, the sign or the fact that you're stopping?
Yeah.
Right? So when you get into even the translations of the Bibles, what they're able to do with manipulating the symbols, when you read the Hebrew Bible, it literally says the gods, plural, vibrated and became light. In English, that's what it says if you read it in Hebrew.
Can you prove that anyway? Not right now.
Go talk to a rabbi. Just go read Genesis in Hebrew. Like, go get somebody to teach you how to read Hebrew.
It says
the gods vibrated and became light. I took some biblical Hebrew classes, and that's like what my teacher, like when I was reading it, it was like this word is vibrate. It was like, it's Elohim. I mean, you're speaking of Hebrew, right? Im, El, God, Elohim, the gods. That's what it means. The gods vibrated and became light.
Really?
Right. In English, they say God spoke and said, "Let there be light." Mm-hmm. In Hebrew, it's the gods vibrated and became light.
So they made it much more a story.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, but I say the function of Judaism, if you actually read it, is to bring people to the apex of intellect. So the Torah, like when people tell me they read the Bible, it's like, did you read it in Hebrew? Did you read it in Aramaic? Then you don't fucking read it. Stop it. Like if you I don't read Aramaic, but I've heard Aramaic scholars talking about it. The words of Jesus are so different than what made it into the Bible. Like even the term Abba is a term of endearment that's given. It's like so feminist friendly, and I don't want to say it's like a feminist text, but it's so balanced. It's so the understanding that of the unity of creation. Like when you hear the Aramaic scholars talk about what was actually being said, the Torah and the Old Testament are different books. Like they're not, because I mean think the term King James Bible literally means it's a political text.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I know, that's why I said it.
I wish, that's why I've been learning Hebrew, just to read the original one. It's in the, never mind, that's a dumb question. But we're not that far off, as you said.
No.
Like, not at all. And I like how you're way more accepting of other religions. Can I ask you one thing?
Sure.
What do you believe about Islam, since they're the book after the Bible?
I think the same thing of all religions. If the practitioner is just, the practice will be just. If the practitioner is unjust, the practice will be unjust.
But in Islam, they have.
I think Jews and Muslims have to be the same people as some great cosmic joke. I think it's a law. They have to be, right? They have to be, and it's crazy, right? Because I'm not Jewish, right? But there's, like, my kid's mother's Jewish, and it's like, they start speaking Arabic, right? It's like you walk down the street, it's like, and people are like, Yallah, yeah. Right? And it's like, I thought that was Arabic, but all the Jews know what it means. Right? It's like there's so much crossover. There's so much crossover.
There is. I mean, they're all around the same area.
So it's like, for me, it's like, when we get back to heaven and find out that Jews and Muslims are the same people, God's just going to start pissing himself laughing. Like all creation is just going to sing and be like, you fucking morons.
funny you say that. Being in Israel, that's very true. Like, they sound exactly the same. Though they hate each other, they act very, very, very similar this time. Even in, like, their...
Did you ever see the movie Don't Mess with the Zohan?
No.
Oh my God, dude, you have to see that movie. It's an Adam Sandler movie. It's the great. It's all about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Oh, really?
But yeah, he like plays like this. Like, I really think that that's a messianic interpretation of the conflict. I literally think that if we could just get everybody to sit down and realize how prophetic that movie is, because at the end, they're like, because they have like the dark-skinned Jews and the light-skinned Jews there, and then like they're like joking. He's like, and then the guy's like, but everybody hates us, and he's like, that's because they think we're you.
That's a good line.
It's like, it's the most beautiful thing you could possibly imagine, right? And then it's so funny because like you take those same people and you put them in America, and as long as they're not insane, there's like no conflict, right? And it's like they're both praying to the God of Abraham, right? I mean, they both basically have the same interpretation of Jesus, right? Like,
well, Jesus was a prophet.
No, it's similar. Yeah, it's similar. It
wasn't the Messiah.
It's like basically what you're seeing is two slightly different interpretations of the same exact thing. And this is, again, it's the messianic thing. It's like, can we just reconcile this? Right? And you know that term that caught, "Can't we all just get along?" by Rodney King? Think about it. King. Can't we all just get along? Like, this is literally what brings about the kingdom. The science of how to get along, though, is very complicated. So the first thing you have to do is achieve the unity with creation. And all you have to do, like I say, the chosen are the people who choose to be chosen. Right? Because when you make that choice, life gets very difficult because you have to carry, like, I won't get into the whole thing, but I know I did the right thing a while ago and it cost me a lot. And I remember sitting out here in 27-degree weather with no job, thinking to myself, so this is what it means to be crucified for the sins of humanity. Right? And again, it's not like a delusional thing. I think that there's one Messiah and we choose to align with that one Messiah, and you engender that Messiah, and then you make it easier for everyone to engender that Messiah. Right? So that's what I think about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because, again, you just see politics getting into place and then interpretations. And it's weird because when you listen to both sides, I mean, there's arguments. My kid's Jewish. My kid's mother's a Zionist. Like, and it's like, I definitely want Israel to exist. And I definitely think Israel has flourished. But there's serious problems with what's going on that you can't ignore, right? So you can't just sit there and be an absolutistic idiot about it. Like, there's serious issues to be dealt with. And yes, I think they're dealing with extraterrestrials.
Say that again?
I think they're dealing with extraterrestrials too.
Where? In Israel?
I think the Israeli government's definitely dealing with the ETs.
Interesting.
Definitely dealing with the ETs.
In
So is
what way?
the government's all dealing with the ETs.
Dealing with them in what way?
There's covert sciences. I mean, there's all types of things that are going on.
Yeah. Didn't they they've created a lot of technology over there, haven't they? And
A lot.
A lot.
Quick.
Like, they desalinate their water now. They're the first ones.
Yeah, I mean, now listen, Jewish scientists are normally brilliant. I mean, it's not like, Jews have been shown to have the highest IQ of any fucking population.
I've wondered such, and we own Hollywood and most of Wall Street. It's interesting.
I mean, the thing is, I always looked at the religion as a training school for competence, right? And I think that like anti-Semitic conspiracy theories are just fucking very lazy people that don't know how to admire people properly.
Certainly.
Because it's like, if you just say like, yeah, it's like, all right, they're doing something right. And then it's funny because, yeah, it's like, a lot of times if you piss off a Jewish person, they can crush you, right? And it's like, yeah, because they're fucking smart. It's not a product of a religion. It's a product of people that have trained themselves to be common. We see that with Asians though too. Like, you really don't want to fuck with like a really sharp Chinese person. No. Like, when I teach chess, right? You go to the chess tournaments, all the little prodigy kids are Chinese, Asian, and Jewish. Yeah. Like, all of them, right? And it's like, all right, you can sit there and formulate your fucking conspiracy theories, or you could just not be a hateful asshole and pay attention. Yeah. And say, like, all right, what are they doing? Right? And then still, like, be humble and be like, all right, what are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? Right? Where is the power corrupting? But in the same breath, it's like, let's not be ridiculous about this, right? And so it's like, you know, because everybody wants to own fucking Hollywood. And those ideas, the conspiratorial ideas on that are so fucking retarded to me.
They are.
Like it's so primitive.
But they do come from somewhere.
Well, the thing, I mean, yeah, because if you're not sophisticated in your thought frames, you look at the tilt that's there. It's like 0.2% of the population, 20% of the world's millionaires.
Yeah.
0.2% of the population, 20% of the world's geniuses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now, if you start to take those stats and go into Asian cultures, they start to get similar. Like, there's amazing similarities between Jewish and Asian cultures because, by the way, they're all on the continent of Asia, right? So, like, there's amazing similarities, and it's like, yeah, there's things they're getting right that teach you how to empower yourself.
Sure.
But then there's also problems because the real wisdom stays hidden, and that's a major issue
Why does it stay hidden?
because of how powerful it is. Corrupt people kept it hidden. Because if everybody learns how to become united from kindergarten, you don't have Jeff Bezos with billions of dollars.
No.
Right? Like, you don't have these
Playing
problems.
field's more even.
Right? Yeah, like you don't have this. As long as that knowledge is occulted, then you can very much keep society tilted.
That's my issue, though. As you said, 0.2% of us, 20% of you said billionaires or millionaires?
Millionaire.
Most of the people, you don't believe at the top there is, I'm not going to say Illuminati, but there's definitely people behind, like, you said Democratic.
Oh no, I
same
listen.
thing.
I think they're organized power groups. I call it the billionaire mafia. I don't call it the Illuminati. I call it the billionaire mafia.
Certainly.
Right?
But
Of
like
course.
even more so than that, like our presidents. Like, you think Joe Biden's making the decisions?
Oh no,
Somebody
dude.
else is telling
Dude,
him, right?
fact check me on this. Every president except two has been part of the same bloodline, and it all traces back to that British king.
What?
Right? Yeah, fact check that. It's on Wikipedia.
That's crazy.
Right? So there's like, no, I mean, all that stuff, but it's like, you don't want to have simplistic interpretations of it though.
No.
Right?
But you see the top is fucked up, and then you see a lot of Jews are at the top, and you know we're a close-knit people, so it's like, it's not a dumb thing to say that, but it is dumb.
It's overly simplistic.
Overly simplistic.
Right. So what you want to do with any thought frame is say everything has truth in it and fallacy in it, right? And then extract what's actually going on. But the problem for like simple-minded conspiracy theorists is that what's going on is actually a dynamic process. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's not like this stagnant Illuminati. There's like these. Now, I think those organizations are definitely real and exist,
Yeah, they have to.
but it's not as simple as like the elders of Zion would make it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I had this guy once say to me, the Jews and the Jesuits are the same. Now, it's funny because I studied a lot of Kabbalistic stuff with Jesuits, right? By Kabbalist, I just mean like mystical realities.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, you're going to see a lot of crossover if you look at it. But this is the conversation we had before. Everything is the same but different, right? Like, everything is the same but different. And any conspiracy that's going on isn't necessarily religious, right?
Yeah.
It's based in human greed.
So you got a lot of Buddhism in you too, huh? With the whole everything part.
Yeah, no, I mean,
They're very everything, aren't they? Like, we're all part of the same. We're all
did
God.
you ever hear the Jubus?
No.
The group
I'm
of
young. You gotta remember. I'm
No,
cultured.
no, look up the Jubus. I think you like it. They talk about the Jews that took up Buddhism.
Jews.
Yeah, and there's a funny story about them. Like, they went to like this mountain and they had these enlightenment experiences, and they asked the yogis like, "What do we do with this?" And they was like, "No, you don't do anything. That's it." And he was like, "No, we're Jews. We have to do something with it." Right? So basically, but I think that's the spirit of the enlightened West. I heard a guy say once, I forget who it was, but he said in the East everybody's B, and in the West everybody's do. But what you really want is do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's how you get the music popping, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, you take this wisdom and then you go and move with it. What I think has happened is, yeah, I mean, look, the founding fathers of America were Kabbalists. They were Freemasons, right? They were Kabbalists. Kabbalah is very serious shit. So I do think that a lot of the wisdom got into the wrong hands. Because there's a thing called the tree of death, right? And that wisdom gets into the wrong hands, right? And you could use it to pollute civilizations. And I think that goes on. But I don't like these unilateral theories about it that just are lazy, because there's a lot of good people. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of good Jewish millionaires that are doing genuine philanthropic work, right? So it's like there's a lot of good people in Hollywood that are putting out really good movies, right? Like, with really good messages. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, I just mentioned Adam Sandler before. You think he's fucking Illuminati? No, but he put out a deeply spiritual, brilliant movie. Like, don't mess with the Zohan. It's so funny how funny that movie is, but how serious it is. Like, he's like this hairstylist that styles everybody's hair with hummus and then fucks them. Like, I mean, it's hysterical, right? but like the underlying fabric of that movie is so genius. Yeah, he's a millionaire Jew in Hollywood, but the movie stands on its own accord, right? So it's like Bible, right? So it's not like this simplistic thing. It makes me want to scream. You know what I mean? Like, I think Sarah Silverman did like a lot of really funny shit. Like, yeah, there's a lot of really funny Jewish comedians. Some of them are really good. Some of them are really bad. Right? But a lot of it, because like, look, like my son's probably on pace to be a grandmaster chess player, right? He's 7 years old. I started training him when he's 3, right? It's like, I love you, bro. We started them at 3, right? We went to like the Hebrew school graduation the other day. It's like, yeah, these people are going to grow up to be millionaires because they're reading fucking ancient Hebrew when they're 4 years old, right? They're like learning how to work in communities when they're 4. You send the kid to yeshiva school. By the time they're 7 years old, they're trying to dissect Hebrew law. They're not going to grow up to be millionaires. Like, that's where like the conspiracy theories are just so lazy. It's
Not
like,
to mention we took on finance before anyone else. It was an ugly job back in the day to do finance and stuff like that. But we took it because
that's the idea of the chosen, right? It's like, I'll do the shit nobody else wants to do. Right, and then you just get hateful people, and it's like, yeah, I'm sure there are Jews that bastardize this stuff, and then there are Jews that do wonderful things, and then you get hateful assholes that are just jealous, that just don't want to be humble and say, what are they doing that's working, and then but still like not idealize it, right? Like I almost converted, but then I was like, maybe not, you know what I mean? And it was like, you can look, like, I have a bunch of scathing shit to say. Like, do you know like the word bad in Hebrew is ra? And the way you say girlfriend is havera. So the word friend is haver. And then havera. So you're literally saying a bad friend is a woman. Right? Like, that's not okay. That's not okay. So I have a lot of scathing shit to say. But there's also a lot of positive shit. And that's what life is. I think it's, what is it? We who wrestle with God. Like, Yaakov is like he who wrestles with God. Because you're fucking struggling through it. Right? Israel is who struggles with God. All right, so it's not Yaakov, Israel. It's it's either Yaakov or Israel or both. It's like who struggles with God. But even if you look at the word Israel, it's Isis Ra El. Right? So Ra, like this is where like, so you have Leshon Kodesh, the holy tongue, right? Like the natural emergence of proper sound, right? And then it gets bastardized over time. So Jews, not a big fan of ancient Egypt. I don't know if you heard about this shit, right? One of the Egyptian gods is Ra. So is it a coincidence that the word Ra means bad? Right? So there's some bastardization of the holy tongue that's made it into the natural language. And then oh no, this is the chosen people of God. It's like, yeah, but let's be careful with this a little bit. Right? Like just a little careful with it, right? The thing that I love about Judaism is I could, like, the Orthodox guys will come through here, and it's Friday, I'll say Shabbat Shalom, they'll ask me if I'm Jewish, I'll start speaking Hebrew to them, and then I'll tell them I'm not. Like, I'll be like, I knocked 2 Jewish women right off the derech, but, you know, like, right off, and then they'll start laughing. But I could sit here and say this to them, and they won't get mad at me. They'll sit there and debate it with me. Maybe I won't change their mind, but they're like, that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Right? And that's really why, that's like the best argument for Jewish excellence, right? Because like they don't, you're trained to not get mad about shit, to just talk about it.
Yeah, you hear it out,
yeah,
and then you argue it.
Right.
Like, I love it so much.
And then you realize that it's actually, the answer is actually a process. It's not stagnant.
Very true. Very true. Constantly. So questioning is kind of part of our religion in a way. But you're very right, because I'm Messianic, obviously. There's not many of us in Israel. Like, I expected the rabbis to at least give me a face, but most of them just ask questions. You know, they asked why I came to see that Yeshua is Yeshua, you know, like, it was so interesting. You're not wrong. We do talk things out.
No accident that you're sitting right in front of him, too.
Yes.
Extraterrestrial chess. Make sure you subscribe. David Chess, step on up. It's cheaper than a gourmet coffee cup.